I just where I'm sort of cautious, not because of Amorim, just because of that football club and the sort of like disaster it's been since Ferguson left.
It just,
it's just
listen, I understand
up.
that, and I'd hate to see Ruben Amorim going the way of so many other United managers, where he looks like he's just climbed out of the skip. He's not shaven for about 3 weeks, and he's got bedhead hair, and you're like, oh my God, what have we done to this poor man? Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport, where football is more than just a game. Joining me is the Manchester football correspondent and a good friend of the channel, Jamie Jackson. Jamie, how are we doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm good. We were talking off camera then about how you sent me a message last night at one point where it was like, basically, I'll paraphrase, it was like, what is going on? But I didn't read it until after the final whistle. I think this is when United 1-0 down. A very odd game against Southampton, one that obviously United won. You were there, at the press conference, you saw Ruben Amorim's reaction. He's spoken about the sort of the roller coaster that we can expect. First of all, just what did you make of that game against Southampton? Because Southampton, who are on course to potentially have the lowest points tally of anyone in Premier League history, for at least a good half, sort of played United almost off the park.
No, they did. I'd say it was concerning. I mean, United did come back into it, obviously, and you won the game and all the rest of it, but they came there, and it was like they were the record 20 times champions of England, not United, at their home. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they bossed United. I mean, they knocked it right. They looked good. And part of that, obviously, is United allowing them to be good. I was just, it just reminded me of so many performances that I've seen of United at Old Trafford over the years since Ferguson went, where you just like can't believe how bad it is or how poor it is. Yeah, I mean, they just couldn't seem to. He talked about in the build-up, knowing that United are a possession-based team and wanting to sort of improve that and get them into the final third, and you know what I mean, like dominate games basically that way. And obviously that's not just going to happen the next game, which was the next day. This one yesterday, if he knows he has to, it's a long way off. But it was just like I was looking at it thinking, crumbs. And he sort of said, not forget about Arsenal, Liverpool, those good results, positive results, but he'll know more in this game. And in my match report, I said, well, what he's been told is not what he wants to see, really, which is they didn't seem to be able to get up for it. I thought it was panicky. I mean, the question I asked him afterwards, and the news story we did in the Guardian to accompany my match report was on the back of my question saying they look panicky. And obviously he denied that, but he used the word panic, so you can use it as a story, denied that they were panicky. I just thought you were a little bit. Diallo, look, all teams need star players who can turn games. You've got one there, that's great. But what I'm working up to say is I don't think he can do it every week because it's impossible. I know he's been really good. Anfield City, you know what I mean? He's a very good player. But without that, we talk about a 1-0 defeat. I mean, against the bottom placed team who are an absolute disaster of a sort of side, playing out from the back, all the rest of it. And that's kind of what cost them, right? Diallo, sort of like, I think for the winner, Howard Bellis got caught, didn't he? His hat-trick goal.
Yeah, it was his third, right, yeah.
But until 82 minutes, you're losing. Now, it's great coming back. Of course, that shows that they're playing for the manager and all that sort of palaver. I mean, players should always play for a manager because they're getting paid lots of money. But I just, I was, whoever I sat next to at the game before, I said, I can see them losing this. And they were like, no way, not even United. I was like, well, just because it's United. So, don't know, glass half full is you win. But he knows as well, he's just, Amorim afterwards, and he was very open afterwards. He's got a very open, he doesn't get defensive about like sticky questions. So when I asked him that about panicking, another manager, and to be fair enough, would want to sort of stick up for his players. He didn't accept it, he did defend it, but he wasn't like in a sort of...
So just to clarify,
yes.
What did you ask him?
I said to him, look, you said before this game you will learn more about your players from this one than like the good results or the positive results at Arsenal and Liverpool. Is it fair to say you've learned that they can panic a little bit? And he said, no, not panic. But he said, it's not from a lack of effort. And then he started to say, as part of the answer, that, players were tired. And I sort of jumped on it a little bit because he said about Ugarte being tired, basically from the start, as soon as it kicked off. And I'm thinking, well, why have you selected him? So I said to him, how can an elite player like Ugarte be tired? I know he's just played at Arsenal, but the point is, he's an elite player and he sort of said that can happen and, it's the Premier League. But also, you tell me what you think, but he changes Anthony. He brings Anthony on at half-time, but then like 6 or 7 minutes in, he then changes 2 more players, bringing Xerxes and... Who was he with?
Collier.
Yeah.
And was it Collier? Did Collier come on at half-time?
No, it was only Anthony at half-time.
Anthony at half-time, and then Collier came on in the second half and Xerxes came on.
So you tell me, you've already made one change at half-time, and then within 6 or 7 minutes, you're looking at it thinking, oh, God, I need to make 2 more changes. Is that Is that? I mean, I know you won the game, so you're gonna, you may well say it's good, but that to me is like it's a bit like when he pulled off Xerxes, sorry, after 32 minutes of that game. I felt sorry for Xerxes. He could have pulled off anyone, but like, why have you picked him in first place and just given him half an hour? I don't know what you think about that.
I'll be honest with you. Part of me doesn't mind it. I felt a bit sorry for Xerxes, and I think the reaction was, the booing was just nonsensical. Yeah. I've never understood booing your own players, and I still don't. And since then, I think Xerxes deserves credit for the resolve he showed. And there's a player there, whether he's going to be ultimately good enough for Manchester United, I don't know, but we certainly need him this season. We need him immediately. So don't let's try and get the best out of the kid and get behind him, which is what the vast majority of United fans have done, by the way. I don't want to sort of taint everyone with the same brush, but I still feel like with Amorim, he's still got to be finding his best team. He's still got to be learning a little bit about the Premier League. He's still relatively new to the Premier League. And okay, Southampton have got a new manager themselves, but he's going up against managers who, even Arne Slot's been in the Premier League longer than he has, and obviously Pep Guardiola a lot
it's only 15
longer.
games.
Yeah, it's 15 games. So I think he's still probably looking and thinking, okay, who can I trust? Who's good enough? Who's shown me enough or whatever. I saw that fatigue in myself. I think Mainoo and Yagai, I think they're great players. They looked off it to me, and I think maybe was it 2 hours or whatever it was at the Emirates, or longer than 2 hours. That 10 men, did it catch up with him?
Yeah.
So I get your point of like why are players being sick, but I think that when you've started 10 men and you're against a team like Arsenal, who are one of the best teams in the country, it can sort of show a little bit. And I'd rather he does these things now. Finds his feet, sort of works out who I can trust, who's good enough, who's not.
Yeah.
Maybe gets things wrong. Yeah. And goes, okay, I was a bit naive there. Because I thought the Newcastle game, for me, and I love Ruben Amorim before anyone starts, he showed a little bit of naivety with Casemiro and Eriksen in midfield.
100%. What was that about?
And I said that before the game, so this isn't me with hindsight. Yeah. I thought them against the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton, it's an ask. Yeah, it's an ask.
Yeah.
And he obviously sort of realised that when he brought Kobbie Mainoo and put him into the midfield. So I don't mind it as much now. You find your feet a little bit. You're still trying to work out. You want him to sort of realise these things. And I think he's the type of guy that will. He seems to be a very sort of astute manager. The problem he had with Ten Hag was sort of towards the end he was doing these things. Towards the end at times, Erik Ten Hag was making these mistakes.
100%.
Yeah, and that was the problem you had. Is not a manager who's been in 15 games, but one who's been in over 2 years who's doing that. Then you go in, why has he done that? I don't understand why. Why is he not trusting this player a bit more and this one a bit less? Do
you know what? I should remember this because it's in the copy I filed for this afternoon's story. But he basically said we've only been together 14 or 15 games. That's in all competitions. And he said about training sessions, and I think he must have meant like full ones. I think it's only like 2 or 3. It's, because of recovery, that's a ridiculously small amount. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that is hilariously low. So, I mean, he really is. What I like about him, and I know part of it is he can allow players to pick up on excuses, but he doesn't come across as someone who's bleating, even when he's pretending not to. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So no. He says the right things, but he sort of, I don't know. That's got to rub off on the players. They've got to see that this guy is sort of like, they've got a chance for him, because it's their careers as well. You've got to remember, like, not you personally, but just generally, these are players, they're human beings, they want to succeed. If you've got anything about you, you've got that far, you've got to the very top to Manchester United, you can't get much better or bigger. And then that's happened with Ten Hag, and this guy comes in, and they must be looking at him thinking, if they weren't already, this guy's got, we've got to give him a chance and give myself a chance to actually succeed. And I think we are seeing that a bit. I mean, where I'm sort of cautious, not because of Amorim, just because of that football club and the sort of like disaster it's been since Ferguson left.
It's just listen, I understand that, and I'd hate to see Ruben Amorim going the way of so many other United managers, where he looks like he's just climbed out of the skip. He's not shaven for about 3 weeks, and he's got bedhead hair, and you're like, oh my God, what have we done to this poor man? We saw it, Jose Mourinho came in looking all suave, didn't he? And by the end, he looked like he'd had enough of life.
Those memes, isn't there, on social media where you say before and after, and United,
it is a thing, and I hope Ruben Amorim, who's obviously very charismatic and a good-looking man, doesn't end up getting broken.
I don't think he will, because again, I'm going to say this. Maybe this will come back to haunt me. I just feel like he's got a little X factor or an X factor that he's going to do it. And possibly because he understands what you just said. Then because he has already. He made a joke. I can't remember after what game it was. It was in a press conference where he basically said what you just said. Then he said, "Already look at me," or it wasn't that exactly, but it was basically that. So already, I think he's very self-aware.
I wanted to ask you about it just from a media point of view.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, the media, you guys in the press, are you sort of liking what you're seeing from him in the press conference? Because I think that It's not the be all and end all, but I think that can give you an advantage as a United manager, whether you've got a good relationship with the press, and the press are like, you know what, I can see what this guy's trying to do, and I quite enjoy it.
It's not the thing, but one of the things that cost Mourinho his job was the fact that he was so sort of snotty with us lot. And not because we are all great people and we deserve it, but because how it looks to the public, you know, that coming across as kind of rude, basically, and uppity, however you want to put it. I mean, I like Ten Hag, but a lot of people thought, my colleagues thought he wasn't charismatic enough. I actually thought he had his own charisma. But yeah, Amorim is a different thing. I do think, if you look at them all the very good ones, whether you like them or not, whichever club they manage, the really good ones, Wenger, Guardiola, Ferguson, obviously, Klopp, they've all got a way of, sort of coming across, and they're almost like stars in themselves, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think Amorim's got the makings of that. I think he has to win, obviously. That's kind of what, if you win, you could turn up sort of, with something off your head and people, what I mean? They'll just accept it. That's the only way of controlling the message,
It's true because, in terms of popularity, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, especially the fans, couldn't have been more popular. He's a club legend.
Yeah, sure.
And then towards the end, that doesn't save you from everyone because even if some of the fans turn against him because you just, if you're losing football matches.
Ferguson had it in those three years when you didn't have the title. Was it 2-3 to 2-6?
Seems like it's a different world.
I mean,
those whole 3 years
exactly
without the Premier League title. Exactly. What a horrible experience that was.
And I think he got cheesed off with it because of what he'd done. And some fans turned.
Was this around the sort of the 2000?
Yeah, Jemba and all that.
2004, sorry. Yeah. 2006. Because you had it was a time on it where you had Wenger, Kate had come in and
Mourinho
would have been here
Chelsea,
Wenger would go in,
So yeah, I mean, but he turned it around. But it's you got to win.
We're pleased that, as always, Off the Bar is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. This Sunday at 2 o'clock, Manchester United host Brighton in the Premier League, so get all your mates together and get down to your local Green King Sport pub to catch all the action. If you use the Green King Sport app, you'll be able to find your nearest Green King Sport pub where you can get 10% off your drinks for the entirety of the game, and if you've not used the app before, you can even get a free drink. We've linked the app in the description, so go and check it out, and a big thank you to Green King Sport. So when we talk about sort of Ruben Amorim, and you mentioned it, the roller coaster and the expectations, whatever, how much pressure do you think he's under? Because we've had some positive results, as we've spoken about, but there was a point, I'm not going to lie to you, there was a point last night when I was thinking, United could lose this. This is 4 defeats, or whatever it is, at home on the trot. And I'm not saying anything, it's sacked or anything like that, but do Ineos lose a little bit of faith in him? Do they question him or anything? Does it make it harder for him in the long run to be given the time and the backing that he needs? Where do you stand on that? How much pressure do you feel he's under?
No, it's a good question. I think he is under pressure. I mean, mentioned before, if they lost that game, it'd be the first time 4 home losses since it was like the end of the 1929 going into 1930 season in the league, the last time that had happened. And look at Dan Ashworth, the second most important, in theory, football person, expert, if you like, at the club, gets sacked after 5 months, basically because Ratcliffe couldn't get on with him, what I'm told. It was as simple as that. Right,
okay.
Right, so, now it was interesting. Amorim said yesterday that he had about 5 minutes with Ratcliffe, who was at the game, after the game, and he made a joke, and it was just a joke, that obviously the result helped the conversation. Of course it would do, But what I'm saying is Ratcliffe is very hands-on. He's there all the time, either at games or at the club. He really is. Him and Brailsford running it. And he is under pressure. I mean, you're completely right. There is no way he gets a free pass if the results, are kind of bad and you're losing one and, losing three on the bounce at home and then maybe winning one and then going back to. I think he would go. They don't want to do it. I don't think it will happen because I think he's good enough. And the reason that I was sort of related to the Ashworth thing was, it was said to me that him and Ratcliffe it was never going to work, but and part of it was the thinking was, let's get rid of an issue now rather than letting it fester, make it really bad. Like, you've got to admire that, right? So what I'm trying to say is, I cannot believe, but I've been down this road so many times at United, that they have not, thought about Amorim, him coming in, he plays his 3-4-3, talk to him. Look, what happens if this goes sort of seriously? What's it up? His first, in this season we're in now. Do we let him start? They must surely have chess game that or war game, And thought, obviously they can never say that publicly. So I'd be surprised, but I just. It's Manchester United. I mean, at any club, if you're losing a lot. I mean, you're right. Yesterday, if they'd have lost that, I don't know exactly. I think it would have been 6 points to the relegation the last relegation team.
I'm not trying to be negative for the sake of it.
I know
and I don't, for 1 minute, I don't want anyone to take this out of context that I think or believe or want Ruben Amorim to get sacked or I think he's going to get sacked or anything like that. I'm just looking at Ineos and looking at results.
Yeah, that's the way to look at it.
Looking at it from a sort of the way they operate. You know, we saw it at Nice. We've seen it with Dan Ashworth. He's like, this is a manager that has to deliver some results this season. Obviously, you can say, I inherited a mess. I'm still fixing it. I've not had a transfer or a window or an effective.
People who work with him at Ineos, right, like are close, have told me that he has sacked people mid-sentence. Now, even if that's an exaggeration, right, Ashworth metaphorically is mid-sentence. It was only 5 months. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It wasn't
mid-sentence. He spent 3 months trying to get him.
Exactly, and paid 2 or 3 million. You know what I mean? So, you know, as a figure of speech, that is kind of mid-sentence, isn't it? After just 5 months. So he's definitely got it in him. He's a billionaire. You know, he can do what he likes because he's got that money. He's the biggest single minority shareholder now in the club. You know, like obviously the Glazers have more collectively. But have you ever heard? You know, I know that you never hear from the Glazers anyway. But I've never once since he's been in come across anyone telling him at the club, well, this didn't happen because Joel Glazer has said no. So basically, he's running the show. Yeah. So it's his sort of like club now. I mean, you know, at some point, and again, this is told to me from people at Ineos, they understand that, and this is a little bit like the transfers, you know, which maybe we'll go into a bit more in depth. You know, like sort of saying Garnacho, Manu, inferior up for sale because they are trying to sort it out properly. It's not to say that they're wise in the way they're doing it, or I think they're particularly, you know what I mean? They could make mistakes, but I think that they are trying. I don't think they've come in here, into your club to like, you know, take it down and do the wrong thing. I really think they are trying. They made some mistakes already. The Ashworth one was hilarious. And also Ten Hag in a way. I mean, they should have, if they're going to stick with him. Anyway, that's old news now. So, yeah, I mean, going back to Amorim, listen, you know, it's Brighton, then it's Rangers, then it's Steaua Bucharest, is it?
Yeah, so.
And then I can't remember exactly who you've got, but I think
there's a few games coming up that are
Fulham maybe,
on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be different. I'd be saying something slightly different if he'd have lost to Southampton yesterday. I mean, you know, he can't say this, but anyone who watches football, you don't have to be Amorim, Pep Guardiola, you know, you or I can look at that squad and basically identify the players who you would keep in a perfect world and who you get rid of, right? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You know, anyone could do that. Who's got half a brain.
We do it every week on this show.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is he'll know that, right, Amorim? So it's not, you know. I'm just a little bit concerned that 15 games in, and you look at the way they play, and I know I said before we had 2 training sessions, but everyone's saying to me, I can see the way they play. I'm not saying that it's a muddle, but it just seems kind of the same as Ten Hag. Am I you know what I mean?
There's some similarities there. I
don't mean it's a mess. I'm not saying like it's a disaster. What I'm saying is it doesn't seem to have changed that much despite this 3-4-3, but that must be because, or I'd like to think that's because he hasn't had time to really, you know, he's conscious of this. He wants United to go through automatically in the Europa League, so he'll have a free week without the knockout round, a free couple of weeks. So, you know,
I think there's an element with Amorim though that didn't happen with Ten Hag. Is Amorim stuck to his guns more than Ten Hag did, because Ten Hag seemed to, after the Brentford defeat, just sort of go, right, okay, we tried to play out from the back, we tried to do this, let's not do that. Amorim is going, look, this is the system. I think the problem that Amorim's got at the minute is he's got too many players that probably aren't quite suited to it. He's got a massive issue with goal scoring, which is, you know, you've got 2, even like we all love Joshua Zirkzee recently because of his performances, but he's not an out-and-out goal scorer.
Hoyland hasn't scored since the 7th of December. Victoria Pilsen, 2. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think he's got
2. He's got 2 in the Premier League. And again, listen,
but he's not missing loads though, is he? That's the thing. It's not like he's getting loads of chances.
No, so that's an issue that needs fixing, and whether that's just, you know, buy someone else or whatever, which is probably the most obvious solution to it. When's that going to happen though?
But listen, I'm not saying wrong, but do you really think that Hoyland's missing loads of chances, therefore he's not good enough? I mean, you know, I'm reading stuff on Twitter or whatever it is, and he
don't hold
that. Well, exactly. He doesn't hold up the ball enough, and he's useless. But I'm looking at it and thinking, I mean, yesterday he made a really nice pass for Garnacho, you know, and he misses it, right? I mean, that to me is good. So again, I think it's a bit early to you know, to sort of say he's not good enough. I just think the team is not good enough.
I think Hoyland in an ideal world would be
a backup. And
I like the kid, and I think he's, you know, obviously, I don't say a kid, I say it all the time. He's, you know, he scored 16 goals in his first season, which was a good return, and we've seen what he's capable of, but he is in a bit of a barren spell, and you feel like this is the time where you'd want an experienced striker to be leading the line, and you could take Hoyland out for more than just one game. And we haven't really got that.
No, you're
and
right.
it's an issue. And obviously, Rashford's no longer available, even though I don't think he's particularly the answer at number 9. Xerxes, who can play number 9, even though he says himself he's a 9.5 or whatever, isn't an out-and-out goal scorer either way. It's a lot of pressure and expectation on Højlund because it's like it's him or bust.
Do you know what's interesting? You mentioned Rashford there because the question I nearly asked him in the pre-game presser was, I know you did well at Arsenal and Liverpool, but you wouldn't be human if you weren't looking at those games, and maybe others thinking, it'd be nice just to have Rashford as an option off the bench. What exactly is the score? Because I know, you said it was for training reasons. You left him out, that was a month ago after City. And I'm also told Rashford fancies playing at number 9. Now that might be because I'm being told that because they want that message out there because, there's a whole sort of propaganda thing going on. But I'd love to, I will ask him because, so he's still training badly a month on? If so, is it a fine thing? And if not, I don't know. It's just the whole. I get that he said he wants to leave and all that, and I know that but it's just if you're going to try and get a deal for him, surely he's better off playing every now and then. I don't know.
Do you think there's an element? We was chatting to, I think it was Ben Jacobs earlier. Do you think there's an element, or could there be an element of they want to sell him? They know they're going to sell him just. Not protecting him, but
possibly
not letting him play and get injured. Or whatever, because I know, if he gets a knock or whatever, then that's that out the window.
What's interesting,
I'm with you because in many ways it is a bit odd. Are we saying that Marcus Rashford for the last 6 weeks, whatever it's been, or a month, has been training terribly?
So badly. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Like even you might get.
Listen,
Ethan Wheatley
what you just said then may well be the case, but it'd be good to hear it from him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
if
so
it is the case, if he just says for the last 4 weeks, whatever, Marcus hasn't turned up in training to the levels of 1, then that's terrible.
And he brought him back for that Newcastle game. Now, was that because there was no one else?
I think he alluded to that, didn't he, a little bit?
But we're now, the 17th of Jan? So what is there, 2 weeks left of this window?
Let's be honest, right? Let's just be honest. If Marcus Rashford was training as hard as he could, he'd get in the squad, surely. Yeah, like
it's your best form still, isn't it?
He'd. I think up until the Southampton game, he still had top Premier League goal scorer or joint top Premier League goal scorer. Like, even if you don't rate Marcus Rashford, he's good enough to make Manchester United's bench, and he's done it. And he was starting for Ruben Amorim. He was starting games and even scoring some goals for Ruben Amorim. So I think there's obviously something gone on 100%. there. Like, I don't think it's a case of like, oh, he's playing, he's trying really hard in training, he's doing really well. But I just don't think he's quite good enough. You are the Manchester football correspondent, so it would be remiss of me not to talk about Manchester City because it does affect United.
Who are they?
They're the small team from East Manchester. There's been a lot of noise around them recently. Erling Haaland's just signed this new deal, which is for the rest of his life, apparently. What do you make of that, Jake? You've been at you've just come from the Manchester City press conference.
Yeah, well, good question because the question I asked Pep Guardiola was, well, before me, someone asked who decided on the length of this contract. Was it the club or Haaland? But my question was, in essence, never mind who, why is it so long? Yeah. And I said, is it basically because you've looked at the Mbappe deal or Begarissi, the sporting director, and Soriano, the chief executive? Look at the Mbappe thing in summer when he's left PSG for free and signed at Real Madrid, and you basically don't want that to happen. I mean, it's fair enough reasoning, and he sort of flowered it away a little bit, saying, I don't know the reason, I didn't ask. I mean, he always says that he has nothing to do with negotiation, and in fact, the top line I did out of it was that the first he knew was Begarissi telling him it was 10 years and him going, sorry, can you repeat? I mean, I just don't, anyway, that's his part, that's up to him. But at the end of the answer, he did say, why not make the effort to keep him? As if to say it was to kind of protect it. I mean, in Spain, apparently, I didn't realise this. These deals are more common. This length of deal. I don't think he'll still be there at 34. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at it basically because of what I just said about the Mbappe thing. Maybe not this season, but in 2 seasons' time or something, they come in and there might be a clause in there where you pay us £500 million for the transfer fee. You can go because if you think about. Now the length of the contract, what he'll be on, £500,000 a year. I worked out at £247 million basic he's going to earn from this deal, right? That's before you get into like bonuses for scoring and winning stuff, blah, 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 blah. So there may well be a clause there.
How much is it?
Well, I think if you do a basic £500,000 a week over 9.5 years, maybe I did it over 10 years, it's a thick end of £250 million. He will earn basic before you get to...
Is he really happy though, Jay?
Well, spiritually, can he look himself in the mirror and say he's made the most out of his talent?
It's all very well and good in it, money, but there's more to life than that, son.
I mean, when I asked it point blank to Guardiola, he did sort of, take his time to answer. But the other thing I said was, he's not as good as Messi, don't get me wrong, Pep, but is he this generation's Messi, as in like the standout? I mean, obviously Mbappe's in there, and he agreed with it, he didn't really agree with it in terms of numbers of goals, but then he sort of said Messi's a one-off and Ronaldo was in that bracket as well. So what do I think of the deal? I am slightly surprised, apart from this protect the asset thing, just because it's a lot of money, but they do have a lot of money. I was told the other week that because of the ins and outs sales the last few years, they've got about, in terms of money they can spend under the whatever the rules are, PSR rules, it's about $500 million they've got in the kitty
Really?
for transfers and the contracts. And obviously this won't be paid. It's over the next 9.5 years. So I can sort of see the sense in it. I mean, it's an interesting one because Guardiola is always very careful about any player to sort of keep the feet on the ground. A bit like what Amorim did about Diallo yesterday after the hat-trick. He still has to. But how can he possibly say about Haaland or give the impression that his place might be under threat? He needs to sort of... Obviously, he will say it. But, this guy... And also, how do they sign... I mean, unless it's like an Alvarez, as Alvarez was, it's going to be difficult to get a guy in who will want to compete with Haaland because you're always going to play second fiddle. I suppose the answer is to get in like another Alvarez who can play number 10 as, sort of is versatile. But maybe this is the way it's going to go with these super goals. You look at the Mbappe. I know Messi was basically over the hill, but didn't he leave for free from Barcelona to go to PSG? Was it?
Yeah.
So I think they're looking at these sort of things, thinking we can't afford for that to happen. So yeah, I mean, here we are. And as I was sort of saying off camera, I think we worked it out. I didn't do this, but one of the other lads worked it out that if he continues at his rate of, he's played an average of 33 games in the league the last 2 seasons. And with the goals he scored in that competition, it takes 6.5 years to beat Shearer's record. What is Shearer's record?
260.
Right, yeah. So even then he would have 2 or 3 years left of this contract. Yeah. So it takes him 6.5 to beat that. I mean, the numbers are phenomenal. I think he averages 0.88 goals a game. I mean, I could go on about them. He's a phenomenon, isn't he? He's like the example I use sometimes in print. He's like, remember when Jonah Lomu came through in rugby union? I don't know if you...
Yeah. I'm not a big rugby union fan, but he's sort of crossed the divide.
Exactly.
He was a player that even...
Exactly. And
South African World Cup where...
Because he was just like something else. Just like
they didn't win it, but...
Sort of doing the sport almost. Do you know what I mean? That's what Haaland's like for football. So, yeah, I mean, they are... if you ask me a slightly different question, they do... This season's shown it up a little bit. They are a little bit one-dimensional with him in the team, but
it says a lot though that even when he's not playing as well as he can, he's still getting goals. And I listen. I agree. I'm going to say lavish praise on him. Of course, I'd rather.
Why would you do that?
Extract my own teeth, but you got to be credit. He's a bit good, isn't he?
Yeah,
unfortunately,
he's half decent. Yeah.
Yeah. Just on the wider sort of context of this, because I'm sure you've been asked that it's. People are looking at this as, what does this mean for these charges? Even to the point of the contract is around 140 months or something. People saying, is that a little nod towards those charges? Right. I think that's stretching it a bit, but you never know. Do you think this indicates anything in terms of the charges?
It's a good question. I mean, again, in the piece I've written for The Guardian, it addresses this point. Now, let's say, for example, they're found guilty. Obviously, they deny the charges, to say that's City, but they're found guilty, and part of the punishment is to get relegated whenever it is. On the one hand, you'd think there'd be a clause saying he can leave, but actually, does he need that clause? Because if they go down, he's just going to ask for a transfer, isn't he? And
unless they loan him, maybe. Because the thing with City, I get your point.
On that wage, who's going to pay the wage? That's
maybe.
The thing.
But if they got the money, could they say, "Look, eat a chunk of your wage"?
That's not a bad call. But what I'm trying to say is that
loan him for a season or whatever.
I don't think they're going to go down. I don't think they think it. I mean, they would obviously say they're innocent, but I think maybe there is a school of thought saying that. Okay, I know that they're plunging in the league this season, but one of the reasons why they've gone to town in this window, it's going to be 3 or 4 players, I think, is because maybe they feel, if found guilty, and again I should repeat, they deny it all, because I have to do that legally, but
I'm glad to do that, because we're a stickler for legalities on this channel.
I've got to be careful. They may get a transfer embargo if they were to be found guilty, so that's why they're going to town now. But again, with the appeals process, I don't think any punishment would necessarily, if they were found guilty, would happen this season anyway. So I'm not too sure it does say much about the charges at all.
Yeah, I get that. I've had so many messages from different people saying this means this or it means that, or actually this shows this. Yeah. And I've seen it on socials, sort of City fans, majority of City fans are saying this shows that we know and even a few rival fans are saying the same thing, while others are saying it's like sort of, in times of peace, prepare for war and all that sort of nonsense. So we'll see.
Someone's really said that, have they?
Well, I might have just said that bit, but that kind of vibe.
I like it.
Do you know what I mean? I like those sort of Greek philosophers or whatever it is. Let's go back to Manchester United. The story that you covered earlier on this month, and that sort of was causing a bit of a storm, was just about potential outgoings and whether some of our younger players.
Yeah, it's proved to be right, that as well, isn't it? I didn't hear from anyone on social media who was giving me a load of sticks saying, "Oh, sorry about that." But yeah, I mean,
so this is basically Mainu, Garnacho. I think you said that and Højlund, that basically it's not off the table that Manchester United would be willing to sell.
Yeah, they don't want to sell them. They don't want to sell the players, but they have to. And you know, I'm basically told every player. I mean, to a certain extent, this is true of any player, apart from maybe Messi or, you know, any players for sale. But what basically I'm told is they accept Ineos that it's not that under them necessarily, but previously been really bad sellers. You know, when was the last time you sold a player for a lot of money, sort of thing? Is it Ronaldo? I don't know. But
Dan James, I think, was the last one.
Right. So they need to be more nimble. They need to actually be able to, you know, be half competent in selling players, but also, you know, it was said to me, look, at the moment, everyone's sort of looking at Diallo. I'm thinking, they couldn't be sold because he's the man of the moment. But, you know, that was kind of what those three were like last season. So anyone is up for grabs. I mean, I think the Garnacho one, there's more legs in. I mean, it's interesting. He did take off Mainu again at half-time. You know, if you sell him, who do you replace him with? I mean, I just don't get that one at all.
Don't get me started.
I know. I mean, I love Mainu. I think he's a beautiful footballer. Okay, he's not playing amazing at the moment, but so what? I mean, you know, that can happen.
Still only 19.
Exactly. He scored the winner in the FA Cup final.
Yeah, some very good games as well.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean,
you know,
even if they sell Garnacho, if Rashford's out the door, they need bodies. I mean, they should be getting people in. I think, again, this is part of the bind. I mean, before any of this came up, back in whenever I did it, maybe it was before Amorim came in, I was told he doesn't have to sell, or we don't have to sell in January, or, you know, get rid of wages, but probably need to. So that suggested to me that, okay, at that moment, if you didn't do any business, you could get a couple of cut price loans in, but to do anything serious. So I think, again, it's to do with this PSR thing. The problem you've got is, who can get serious money for? I mean, you know, Rashford for me has not helped himself or the club by saying he wanted to leave, because that says to anyone, okay, so it's easier to get. You know what I mean? You need to sell, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of negativity around Marcus Rashford at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, you could
question marks about his.
You could have a whole show. Well, you probably have done whole shows about what's going on.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, going back to that, I think if you ask me a slightly different question, I don't think they should sell. I don't think they should sell Mainu at all, but. I mean, you know, he's after a new contract.
Is there a bit of this, though? Is there an element of, like you sort of said there?
Yeah, I think.
Yes, they would listen to offers for anyone, but almost any club does. And even United in the past, you know, you mentioned Ronaldo there. We didn't want to sell Cristiano Ronaldo, but he wanted to leave, and Real Madrid gave us enough money to make it at the.
I think this is sensitive because of. Especially, I mean, you tell me you're the fan, but I think Mainu is the most sensitive one out of those three names, because he's the homegrown player who looks the best by a country mile out of those three players. He started the European Championship final, for example. So there is an element of that, and also he wants a contract hike, and I don't blame him actually. I mean, I don't think he should go to 200 grand, but he's on 20 grand, which was because it was signed before 2022, whenever it was. So there's an element of that. Chelsea like him, but they don't think it's going to happen. So I'd be staggered for all sorts of reasons if he left. I'd be, January or all. Garnacho I can see happening, but again, and just in terms of bodies, is it going to be Anthony replacing him? Because you've not got Rashford anymore. In terms of actually what the only thing is these the inverted number 10s don't call for wingers. It calls for like a player like Mason Mount, but the problem with him is
he's injured. Isn't he?
He's never sort of. So
it's like you were saying as well. Like there was maybe talk of Garnacho potentially going to. I think Napoli have been linked with him and one or two other clubs. I think Chelsea was a story going around earlier today that Chelsea could be looking at him. But if you're going to sell him in January and not bring anyone in, and also, as we spoke about earlier, Ruben Amorim still needs to win matches this season. He can't just say, we could sell him in January and replace him in the summer. What are you going to do between now and the summer? You've got to still have enough bodies, as you said, to
One thing I did hear,
challenge.
And this was not my information, it was told to me by someone else, was that Ten Hag thought that Garnacho and Rashford weren't very good technically, so it almost had to be a quick sort of build-up thing, or a counter-attack. And so if you're going to play number 10s, which are obviously playmakers, Eriksen's like technically very good as a good example, then maybe Garnacho and also Rashford aren't cut out for that, because it is a sort of playmakers position rather than a fast. I mean, again, I'm always staggered that a player who can get to the very top, which United is not technically, I get that you have certain strengths, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, of those three, I think Garnacho is probably who they get the most money for. Wherever he goes, I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, I like Garnacho. I know it's sort of everyone's
No, I do.
You know,
I do.
He's sort of
Still only
star.
20, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still only young. He's probably played a little bit too much football. He was thrown in when he under Tanai, where it was like he went from being a fringe player to starting. Was it 30 games consecutively? I think it was.
Yeah.
When he was still 19, 20. It was quite a lot, and you can see on his day what he's capable of. I mean, you go back to that overhead kick against Everton. Everyone was like, "This is amazing."
A heck of a game, wasn't it? A goal, sorry.
And then now some people questioning him, but we'll have to wait and see. And it might be a system.
But what you're saying is, I do think football can be fickle. But we all do it. You're almost as good or as bad as your very last 5 minutes of the last game. And like, you know, that's what I'm sort of saying about Højlund. I like to see him if he's in a team which creates lots of chances. And Garnacho, I think he can come. I think there's a place for him in it. And I'm a little bit surprised that he has become, at the club, I mean, expendable. But it is part of this sort of selling homegrown players thing.
Football can be fickle, but we're never fickle on this channel.
We're very wise. You're very wise.
We stick to our guns. I've never changed.
I'm not sure about the crew back there, but you're very wise.
Been reactionary in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what you're on about. Jay, always a pleasure chatting to you. Thanks for that, and hopefully United will continue the great run of form we're on after that epic win over Southampton.
You're back, baby. You're back.
I look forward to seeing you in press conference as well, holding everyone to account and asking the questions. Make sure you go and check Jay out over on the Guardian.
Be kind to me on social media. Stop giving me stick.
Yeah, he's just doing his
I'm a lovely person.
Do you know what I mean? I've taken a break, mate. And also, I'll stop trolling you as well, Jay.
I quite love it. You know what I mean? I quite want it. Come at me. Come on.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You don't want people not talking about it. That's when you start worrying. That's what
I thrive on it. I need attention.
That's what I always tell her. I remember my missus' mum was saying once, like, some of the comments that he's had is terrible. She was getting all upset. I said, listen, I'll only stop caring. I'll start caring when people stop,
baby. It's like when you don't answer my text. So, you know, it's like a cold wind blows through my life.
Never. That's been Jamie Jackson. I'm Jay. This has been Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport. Thanks for watching.